Hello everyone, Sister Danger here. I apologize for the lateness of this video. It's been a really busy week. It was my birthday, I had an event, all kinds of things were going on. However, I am here to do it nevertheless. I also have a brand new mic that I got for my birthday, and I'm not entirely sure how to function it properly. So I apologize if the sound is weird or wonky, and if you have suggestions, then I'm happy to hear those, since all of this technology is ultimately relatively new to me. There were so many things that I wanted to discuss today. I went to see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and there was a lot of issues that were in that movie that I thought, oh man, this would be such a cool thing to talk about. But I can't really do it without spoilers, and I don't want to do spoilers, so that was off the table. And then I was reviewing the US voting down the anti-Nazi propaganda resolution at the United Nations, and I thought that might be an interesting thing to talk about. But then I decided ultimately that it deserved really more time if I were to do a video. And then I got to thinking about this situation that occurred this weekend, and that is what I am going to talk about. I do a lot of Renaissance fairs and festivals and other such similar gigs. So the incident this weekend with this guy basically involved a guy coming into my area and making, some kind of jokey, quippy, we'll say suggestive remarks my direction. But one of the things that we were doing was kind of a fun photo booth. When we go to get our picture taken, he puts his arm around me. And I, being in, work mode, I'm like, okay, smile for the camera kind of a thing. And, gal takes our picture or whatever. And then instead of letting me go, he sort of, tries to loop me around into this, to keep hold of me so he can keep talking to me right here. And he's like, what I found is a funny sort of a picture to take. And I say, well, what's that? And he says, like this. And he holds me like this, and he goes like he's... I was out of there. I mean, I just immediately removed myself from his grasp as fast as I could. And the whole scenario left me with quite a distaste in my mouth, and I did my best to politely shoo him along to go look at other parts of the show. The thing about this, and that I really am looking to talk about, is not particularly to, rip on this guy for being, over the top and having done things that he shouldn't have done and said things that he shouldn't have said in that context, but more to, I guess, to just sort of think about how these things come to pass. Because there, I don't think, can be any doubt that there is this segment of women who encourage that type of behavior, which is fine if you're okay with that, that level of flirtatiousness or whatever it is. That is totally your prerogative. The question becomes, how do you tell, right? What indicators are there that make it clear where the line is to be drawn? Because it is, I can't help but think that it is such a gray area Is it okay if you hold someone's hand? Is it okay if you hug them? Is it okay if you put your hand on their shoulder? Is it okay if you kiss their cheek? How long are you supposed to hug them if you hug them for? I mean, there's all kinds of things, you know? I mean, if a woman is pouring you beer in the tavern and she's leaning over and really shoving her bosoms in your face, would anybody think that in that type of situation it's uncalled for to make a boob joke? It seems it's a very frustrating situation, I'm sure, for men, but also for women, at least for me. I guess I can't speak for other women. But it's a frustrating situation for me because I feel like the only options that I have are to be aloof with people. You know, you can shake my hand, you can sit on that bar stool next to me, but don't touch me, don't come into my personal space. And, you know, certainly if we were to say goodbye, you know, it's going to be at a distance. I feel like my options are to be aloof when I'm not necessarily an aloof person, you know. I'm a friendly person and rather outgoing. But it seems as if once you break this barrier of aloofness, it's as if you've given an inch and now this suddenly can be taken to a mile. And that there isn't any, after that boundary break, there isn't this a clear way to know when what you're saying is, you know, as a joke is actually inappropriate, or if hugging somebody is too creepy. You know, I just don't ascribe to people some sort of malicious intent, some nefarious purpose, right? I would ascribe to men who do this, because this happens to me not infrequently when I am at shows, you know, and I had posted about this on Facebook, and a friend of mine who is a professional masseuse said, yes, the number of times I've had the happy ending joke made and people think they're so witty and funny, because I guess that implying that your massage therapist is also a prostitute is hilarious, you know. And the thing is that I don't, in these scenarios, ascribe to people that they're trying to do something purposefully inappropriate. I am more, I guess, leaning on the side that they are oblivious is really what they are. They don't have a very good sense of, I guess, picking up on social cues. And because of that, they do these things where they think they're being funny, or, you know, they think it's okay to be familiar physically in a certain way. And when it isn't, and they just don't have any sort of scale or gauge for that. I think over time, because I find the entire situation really frustrating, and I don't think there is a magic bullet answer, but over time, it has resulted in giving me an appreciation that I used to not have for propriety and manners. Now, a little bit about me. Growing up, I was taught manners, but I wasn't taught why about those manners. Nobody explained to me ever why you say please and thank you, why you respect your elders. And as a consequence of this, I ended up spending, you know, a good portion of my early years really hating the idea of manners. I found them to be extremely superficial and false, and a sort of social manipulation of other people. That was how I viewed them. And I don't view them that way anymore. In fact, with this whole rise of controversy and rape culture and positive consent and all these things, I have more and more found myself having the thought that I kind of wish we could hearken back a little bit to not actually to an older time period, but to some of the customs of an older time period when it came to manners, social protocols, not for any means to control, but as a means to bridge the gap between men and women in these types of situations, or women and women, or men and men, whatever, between people in these situations where somebody wants to make advances upon another person. So many of the things that I guess that we would think of as manners back in the day, and all of these little relationship or courting traditions that people would engage in order to go about, propositioning a girl, this, that, or the other. There was all these little steps and things and meanings. And I think that most people perceive them as being this really uptight. A lot of times we think of them as Victorian, but they're much older than, the Victorian era. But a lot of people just think of them as all these uptight rules that were put there to control women. And I don't have that perspective. I see them much more as a way to make kind of appropriate signs of interest in an amorous or sexual nature, if you will, without actually violating the person, without infringing upon them physically in a way that they might not appreciate or approve of. One of the things that engaging in proper manners, which I will confess, that now I definitely have an appreciation for that. There's a fine art to being able to use these things, to know them, to do them, to employ them, to use a more sophisticated language. And all of that manages to get the point across without being derogatory, demeaning, and infringing on someone's personal space. Maybe having a bit of a revival in that might not be such a bad thing. It allows people to make advances and retreat from advances if interest isn't reciprocated or shown, with no harm, no foul. Go steampunk communities, right? Anyway, those are my thoughts. Tell me what yours are. Tomorrow is Nathan Brendan Masters, or I guess today, so it's kind of like 2 videos in a day. Maybe he'll be running behind as well. So maybe this week is the week of running behind. Anyway, have a good day, everybody, and I will see you on the flip side.